Hi, it's Steve Walker. Before we get started with this episode, I want to let you know about a couple of great opportunities available at my website, integrityandjoy.com. First, I'm offering a free workshop on December 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern. It's going to be on Zoom. And it's going to be a great opportunity to reflect on 2024 and set yourself up to get off to a good start for 2025. It's called Reflecting on 2024, Gratitude, Lessons, and Empowerment. So check that out and sign up and register at my website. The second thing is I'm going to offer a series of 4 workshops that will help you really get off to a great start in 2025. You'll get an opportunity to set some goals, set some real clear intentions, come up with an actual plan for making them reality, and have built-in accountability so you'll actually follow through. Instead of seeing resolutions that fade away and wither by the roadside, by February, this is an opportunity to actually start 2025 off with a real sense of accomplishment, making some concrete changes in your life. So make sure you go to integrityandjoy.com and sign up today. Welcome to Integrity and Joy. I'm Steve Walker. This is episode 5, my conversation with Bayer and Ben Sackler about their journeys and their 5-month adventure through hiking the Appalachian Trail earlier this year. So welcome to episode 5 of Integrity and Joy. I am Steve Walker, former U.S. diplomat, activist, educator, and now life coach, meditation teacher, and podcaster. So welcome. Hopefully you're following the podcast. Appreciate you being here. Make sure you rate and review. We'd love to get as many 5-star ratings as we can so that we can get this in front of more people. So today you're going to have my conversation with Bayer and Ben Sackler. And they're really interesting guys. They're both so intelligent and reflective and authentic. They have a great friendship. And that's one of the things I like about this episode. When you look at all the studies that have been done about how to live a good life, and which is kind of the theme of this podcast in general, it's about having healthy, good quality relationships and, pushing yourself into your discomfort zone, living with intentionality, mindfulness, like that kind of stuff. And this episode really embodies that. These two guys embody that. And you're going to hear that in the way they've been living their lives, I think, so far in general. And they're going to talk about their 5-month adventure through hiking the Appalachian Trail. And a tune-up that that was extraordinary also, and I won't spoil it. But and then, in debriefing this, and this was really the most in-depth debriefing they had done together at that point when we recorded this a couple of months ago. And we got into a really interesting philosophical conversation about life and the lessons they learned from this trek. And I just think it's wonderful. I think it's interesting. I think there's so much to take from it. I think it's inspirational. So I think you'll really enjoy this. It's a long one, but I think you'll really, really enjoy it. So I hope you're following me on social media at Integrity and Joy on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and LinkedIn and elsewhere. And also, if any of these conversations and episodes resonate with you, and you'd like to have a conversation to see how I might be of help as a life coach for you, whether it's in your personal life or professional life or your managing of your finances, whatever, please reach out to me. You can go to my website, www.integrityandjoy.com. That's integrityandjoy.com. And sign up for a free consultation, right? The initial conversation is free. So there's no harm in doing that. Anyways, without any further ado, here's my conversation with Bayer and Ben Sackler. Ben Sackler and Bayer, welcome to Integrity and Joy. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, it's an honor.
Oh, the honor's all mine. one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have this podcast is that I get to invite really good people that I know um, come on to share their story, because it's like, like hopefully we all know a bunch of good people, but oftentimes like our intersections aren't frequent enough, and we don't get a pause to really like celebrate each other. And so it's a chance for me to like celebrate people that I know who I really like. So yay! So I'm glad I get to celebrate you today.
Love
Yeah,
that.
and it's a fun excuse to just chat with you,
Right?
and see how life's going in early. Well, you're not really retired, just not teaching at the life school anymore, really.
Yeah, new chapter. Yeah. Yeah, moving on from teaching to life coaching and a little bit of consulting, and then podcasting, which is really cool. I feel like I'm in a playground. I feel like I got to be a kid again and just do what I want to do. It's fun.
Love it.
So I want to start off by asking each of you, to think about your journey so far. So maybe start off like each of you, like, how would you describe your childhood? Like, what was your childhood like?
Want to go first?
Sure. When I am asked this question, I'm always like, I can't remember that many integral moments in my childhood, but I think that's probably a good thing, because I think it was just very typical childhood. I was I had a sister that was 2 years older than me, and she was kind of the person that taught me everything I know. I was like, okay, that's how you're supposed to behave, or that's what you're supposed to be interested in, or that's the kind of music you're supposed to like. So I think, being a younger child was a big part of my childhood identity, probably, because I had this role model to look up to and to aspire to be like. And then, I think when the real growth kind of happened for me was probably realizing that you can't base your entire personality off of somebody else's, or your entire identity off of somebody else's. So I think the very moment I probably felt a sense of independence from that is when I, started to realize that I actually am my own person, and started to, kind of explore other things. But I think, yeah, generally my childhood was, I like to say I didn't wake up until I was like 17, or like I was born when I was 17, because for me, like, I feel lucky that my ignorance was bliss a lot of the time. Like, I talk to people now, who maybe were going through it in middle school, or, even the end of elementary school, and definitely high school. And I think for me, I was kind of just floating along, taking in as many things as possible, and trying to be, somebody who made other people laugh. And then it was kind of around when I was 17 when I like woke up and I was like, whoa, like the world is a much bigger place than I realized. And, my life isn't just the things that I'm looking at. But yeah, I like to say that I was floating a little bit in childhood. I don't think my real true, independence or intellectual thought came until I was kind of late teens, when I realized there's more to life than just my life.
That was really interesting about like, realizing that you had to figure out your own kind of identity rather than just building it off of somebody else. How old were you think when you had that realization?
I think maybe around like 12, when my sister and I kind of like started doing different things. She, like we always did the same thing over the summer. We went to the same summer camp. We were always involved in the same sports. We went to the same gymnastics instructor, like all these things. But then she kind of, I think it started when she started doing her own thing over the summer. She was going on like these adventure trips, and I was like working my way up the social ladder at summer camp, and I was like making a name for myself. I was the star of the I played Troy Bolton in High School Musical, and I was like, wait, I did this by myself. Like no one held my hand through this. And I was proud of myself, and it was a sense of independence, I think, that I never knew was possible, because I was always like, yeah, I just base what I do off of what other people do.
Right.
Organically, kind of, I kind of began to do my own thing. and yeah, it was a sense of pride. It made me want to do that even more, I think.
Adam, what about you?
He was Ben over here was clocked as a very positive, fun to be around, charismatic guy from very early on. My mom even talks about running like one of the play groups at Roaring Brook Elementary School, like after school stuff. And she's like, "You're always so fun," and like always has been a pleasure to be around.
And for some reason, Adam wasn't in that after school activity that his own.
I wanted to be.
Ran.
My mom ran this like outdoorsy one, and I wanted to be in chocolate, where you get to eat and make a bunch of little chocolate things. I still remember the chocolate pizza we made, and I learned that was a thing. Like you buy like, you put chocolate all over it. That was so fun.
That does sound fun.
But it's funny you actually didn't mention something that I feel like you've said to me in the past, which is something that I feel like I felt a lot in childhood, was this feeling of not wanting to be a kid, like very much feeling anxious about the fact that I don't know how to do life, and that someday I'm going to have to like go to the airport alone. Like, how do people go to the airport alone? Like, I remember being like, how's he figuring this out? Like, where is he reading this stuff? Like, where there's no like instructions. And like on that same note, like I remember feeling just like feeling just very anxious as a kid about like everything. Like I'm like being on the bus, socializing, like every single sport my parents made me play, just like not being happy anytime I would fail. And I was very happy to like kind of figure out what I was good at, but I think I was pretty anxious and had trouble with that. So I remember just being stressed out as a kid and being very eager to grow up. We grew up in the same hometown, and then I moved to Switzerland with my family in like middle school, which was fun because I kind of got used to the idea of like hitting a little bit of a reset button, enjoying some travel, and just like experiencing other cultures, which before the recording started, we were talking a bit about how it does really open your mind just to experience other cultures and see different types of people and really just see how many different lives could be lived, which is what played into my anxieties too. And I realized like how many people in the world like did not grow up with the same level of privilege that I did, like realizing like, oh, like just like being middle class in America already puts you in the very, very top tier like of earners and like quality of life compared to like the global south, which and like majority world countries is like the other term people use because the majority of people live in quote unquote third world countries. So I remember like learning those things and kind of getting stressed out about that too. I was a pretty stressed out kid. Which I don't know if you want to move on to this point too, but you mentioned like things about the economics class we took in life school and like personal finance. And I think I kind of said like, dude, all these things about like being super stressed out about, oh my gosh, I don't want to have any misfortune in my life. I kind of realized like, okay, I really want to make money from a young age. I remember like researching at 12 and 13, like, is it legal for me to work? Like, and I was like, how do I get working papers? I remember looking up the second I turned 14, it's legal for me to work in some places. I need to figure out how to get working papers. And I was asking my dad, my dad hated how many questions I asked him about this stuff and like money and like work. So I was very concerned with all that from a young age, but still, I think one thing regarding the world of working in finance actually clicked for me. And I think about to this day, Steve, is you teaching us about compound interest and being like, whoa, 5,000 a year starting at age 20, I'll have more money than if I save 10,000 a year starting at age 30. And I remember that one specifically. I was like, what if I start saving at 14? Well, at the time it was 16.
That's so funny. I actually showed that graph to a client the other day who's 24 and was like, look at this. And she was like, whoa. I'm like, when are you going to open your retirement account? She goes, today. It's powerful, right?
Yeah. Big time.
Wow. So it's so interesting. Like the two of you, like Ben, you present this idea that you're kind of like, kind of like happy-go-lucky guy floating. And Adam is there like, plotting at age 12, like, how can I make money? How can I get into the system?
Yes. I was definitely not like that as a kid. I think you described it well. I kind of was like floating around, not realizing that there's responsibilities that I need to undertake that I wasn't. But yeah, to Adam's point, it kind of manifests itself now. Like, for example, when I go to family functions and I could just feel like a confident adult and I can have conversations with people and I don't have to feel like an insecure kid who doesn't know anything. I think that's the part of childhood that kind of made me a little bit anxious and just that when I say like, yeah, I don't really like care for what my childhood was like is because there are parts where I was just like, I feel like I don't know anything. I feel like there's so much to the world that I don't know about, and I just feel insecure that I'm existing in this world that I know nothing about.
Yeah. And of course it was a little do, but also like it was always very like known as a very thoughtful, kind, fun. He wants to make people laugh. Like it's not like he's some dumb jock.
When obviously like there's some kind of connection going back to when you were little, but when did you guys become friends and why?
We have a distinct memory that we go back to. That's the first time we remember hanging out with each other. And it was at the Roaring Brook Elementary School playground in 4th grade. And we were playing horses. And we were just like,
I don't know the rules. We just know we were.
There were no rules. We just both had horses.
What's your horse's name? Mine's Rainbow.
But I think, interestingly enough, our families were friends. So there were certain family functions that we would be at attendance, like with each other. But I don't think we really were friends until high school after you got back from Switzerland. And it was kind of like everyone was coming into their identity, and there was like some concept of people who maybe think a little bit differently or outside the box or whatever it was.
Too kind. So here's what happened. We were family friends from an early day dot, as you like to say. So even before I went to Switzerland, when I came back from Switzerland, it was like, oh wait, actually a little earlier, sorry. So I go to Switzerland, before that I'd say we were family friends, wouldn't have said friends. I come back from Switzerland because we're family friends. There's like some like function at the La Fortezas. There's a sledding hill, and like everyone kind of clocks me as I don't know, probably being a little weird or something. They're like, who's this Swiss guy? We go sledding. I accidentally run over his head, and they're like, okay, confirmed. This weird guy also sucks. Like, give me concussion or something. So I did not make a good impression. And then I leave. Come back. I'm super weird. You can blame Switzerland. You can just blame me being weird.
Wearing a leather jacket,
Skinny jeans,
slick back hair.
I wouldn't say we were. We weren't like friends or even in the same circles until like maybe hung out a little bit sophomore year. But then it's life school. I'd say we started first year of life school, even junior year before he was in it. Was also the first year I was in the a cappella group. We were both in the same a cappella group and in the same circles at that point. And then I'd say went from like just like family friends into each other to like friends. I wouldn't say we became like good friends even until after college. Well, it's actually no, I'd say we were good friends senior year, but definitely much better friends like after everyone else went to college. Skidmore started like a month later than everyone else, and I was doing a gap year, so we hung out like a lot over the course of like 1 or 2 months. I visited him at Skidmore, but yeah, that was the beginning of our close friendship.
So it's interesting. So first of all, let's fill in a little bit for the listeners about the life school, because I haven't talked about it that much yet in the podcast. How would you describe the life school? What was that?
Whenever people ask, I usually say it was kind of like what liberal arts school is to a big state school, but in high school. So we get the chance to this much smaller, tighter knit community. It is selective, but not selective necessarily based on merit, more for the sake of just building a good mixed community. You call your teachers by their first names. You don't have tests. Very like hip was the vibe.
And of course, the acronym is learning interdependently from experience. That should probably be named, right?
You're so right.
Absolutely.
And it's funny, we talk, to people we encounter who we didn't go to high school with, sometimes life school comes up and they're like, so like you need to be like really smart to get in. And we're like, well, not necessarily, no.
Like,
And
so it's like special ed.
and they were like, no,
No.
not that either. It's just a community of people who maybe are not fulfilling their full potential in a kind of more traditional, public high school education, but have so much to give and have a lot of potential. It's just there's this very specific way of going about education these days, and maybe that's not for everybody.
And then they're like, oh, so it's trade school.
No. But yes, project based, a lot of teamwork. Like I think you said, no tests. Kind of like less intimidating environment. And for me, I think one of the things I got out of it most was being able to orate and speak confidently in front of a room and have conversations about things that that were important to me, instead of just learning something and knowing it to be true. Kind of like challenging things and being able to do that with your peers and people who are also kind of taking in life in front of them, and especially when you're around a bunch of people your age who are just trying to figure it out, and there's a lot of reason going on. It's we were very encouraged to have those important conversations and challenge our worldviews that we might have held prior. So I thought that was a really cool and impactful part of life school.
That's great. Well done. Well put. Yeah, I always felt like it's like where education is heading, but education changes so slowly that we've been saying that for 20 something years. and education in general is still kind of moving very slowly. I think AI is going to shake things up a lot. So that may create a kind of disruptive moment for moving things. But I think, I think for me, I think when I started in the life school, it felt like the thing that was most important was the sense of community and the different way of learning, right? That it was more the way people learn best, right? Everybody, which is, the hands-on experiential, project-based, collaborative, chewing on big, important questions and solving problems and all that. In the end, I think this is interesting why I don't miss teaching is because, but in the end, it was about the relationships, right? It's about because I think in the end, the life school, better, it's not perfect, but better than school in general, helps you learn how to become a human being. And that idea that you connect with other people and that part of being a human being is wrestling with big questions and solving problems and understanding stuff. And then some of it is being a good listener and being compassionate and empathetic and caring about each other and creating a sense of community. And so for me, that's the part that I missed, and the part that I think in the end is, for me, was the most impactful. I know, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So having been through that, Adam, you started to go down that path. What came next after high school and why?
I wanted to take a gap year because I just wanted to do something different. I'm like, I've been in school for like 18 years. Like, why would I go straight to more school when I could do something else? Especially if I can defer an acceptance, because I would have been stressed out. Stress is the key word about lack of stability.
Recurring theme.
If there was no option to defer enrollment to a college and I do apply later, zero chance I would have done a gap year. But because schools give me that option, I was like, who cares if I get out at 23 instead of 22? So I looked around, actually, because of one of the life school teachers, I keep wanting to say professor, Justin Severin. I was looking at all these like paid gap year programs that were like the same cost as tuition, where I knew a bunch of other kids who did these things where it was like a semester at sea, or it'd be going to Nepal, and doing this like trip with Where There Be Dragons is one name, just like these gap year programs that are designed to be this for kids who just finished high school and are going to college next year. But then I found out about AmeriCorps, and I'm like, oh, I love the idea that AmeriCorps' National Civilian Community Corps has a structure. It's a 10-month program. It's organized. It's meant for young people. Only 18 to 25-year-olds can sign up for it. It's also community service oriented. So I'm like, this just is not only free, but they give me some money. like version of a program where I get to like make a real impact, and it feels less like I'm doing like a privileged kid thing. Like I get to actually like go do service in communities around the country, explore my own country that I've lived in and haven't been all around. It just seemed like a no-brainer. This is the perfect move. And so and Justin Severn did it. So he suggested it. And that's the only reason I found out about it. And I did it. And it was fun. Once I got there, they mentioned there's an elite firefighting team. So I was like, well, if it's elite, I'll get on it. So I went through the applications and interviews and got on, and I got to be a wildland firefighter in Colorado, like on active wildfires for 6 months after doing like service with Habitat for Humanity. And it was just like, it was super sick. I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. So my friends are in college, and then I'm going to go to college next year. So went to Syracuse.
But now, first, when you deferred, was it Oberlin?
Yeah,
right?
Sorry. So I originally paid my enrollment fee to Colorado College. Then I was like, actually, Oberlin gave me some good money.
You're
My
right.
dad's going to pay for X amount for college, so I could be like $60,000 less in debt if I go to Oberlin. And I'm like, that seems like the move. And then halfway through the gap year, I found out Syracuse gives half off tuition to people who do AmeriCorps. And I'm like, I like how big. I kind of wanted to go to a big school, despite the fact that I liked the element of the life school, that it was small and community based. I was like, it might be fun to go to a bigger school, and I'm sure, like in that sea of people, I'll be able to find my people. And since it's so cheap, I won't have to get any debt. Like that also is a nice move, because stressed about money. And so I ended up, after switching to deferring Oberlin, halfway through my gap year, I emailed Syracuse and said, hey, I applied last year. I missed the deadline to defer, but can I just defer? I know I missed it. It's like way later in the year. And they said, you can reapply, but you'll have guaranteed admittance. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
If you say so.
Excellent.
So I just did that. And I funny enough, the motivations don't actually make much sense, but the way they advertise the School of Information Studies at Syracuse, called the iSchool, they kind of brand it like the life school, despite the fact that it's very much professionally oriented, where they're like, you have the resources of a much larger university, but we are one school with one major, only like 200 to 300 kids. Like you really get closer relationships with your professors. And I was like, wait, this is like, it's like a perfect blend. It's like giving liberal arts. It's also like perfect for career. It's like, it seems like the greatest move ever. And it's technology. I don't have to pigeonhole myself into any industry, because that was another worry. I can like leave my options open by just doing this information technology, like kind of business, kind of technology type major. And so I got excited about that, applied, and then that's what I did at Syracuse. And then so at Syracuse, I started with this major. I didn't go in undecided, thinking I could switch my mind switch my major if I changed my mind. But I realized there was enough flexibility in the course load. I ended up throwing on a double major in philosophy. So I feel like I was scratching that itch of wanting to feel like something a little more not professionally oriented. I joined a cappella. I was in the outdoors club. I got a part-time job on campus at this athletics streaming company, where somehow I learned about sports for the first time in my life. And a great time. Then I was like, I kept maxing out my course load, and ultimately was able to graduate in 3 years. So I didn't miss any time with my gap year. And my head was really in the books.
And you were concerned about the fact that we were all going to graduate in 2020, and that was cool. And
I forgot it. I was like, that was like weirdly like actually important to me. And I was like, class of 2020 sounds so much cooler than 2021.
Cool. Yeah.
So then, my year I went on spring break. They extended it to 2 weeks, and they extended it to 3 weeks because I'm also in Colorado. And then they extended it to forever. So I'm still on spring break. That's what I like to say. That's a beautiful thing about graduating in December of 2020.
Wow. Yeah. That whole COVID thing happened right then. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So ultimately, maybe 2020 wasn't the best year to graduate.
Yeah, no, but I have a whole extra year of working I don't know. I'm in the immediate aftermath in my timeline. Should I try to get all the way to today, or should we?
No, let's go to Ben, because it's some interesting overlap there. Though I want to tell you, like, your 12-year-old self would be very happy that you graduated a year early so you could get out and start making that money, right?
Oh yeah.
So Ben, you also had a change of heart and schools. So tell me about your process and how that all happened.
Actually, hearing about your college experience, even though I know all of that, they were somewhat similar.
Actually, they were really similar.
Really, so, yeah, we
Yeah,
did like
right?
so. Yeah, I started off going to Skidmore College, which is in Saratoga Springs, New York. It's a small private liberal arts college, which is what I thought I wanted at first. And I think it's kind of because I really liked the life school environment, and I was like, how can I make that into a college experience? And I did a really cool pre-orientation trip before I got there. It was like an outdoors trip in the Adirondacks. It was really cool. Made a lot of friends. Joined a cappella there too as well. And you know, it was not even a full semester in well, first of all, that was the 2016 election that November. And so it was like all a collective on the entire campus, just like distress, and everyone was kind of the same, was politically minded in the same way, and had the same political ideologies, or similar at least. And while that, for some people might have provided comfort, for me, it made me like really kind of stressed and anxious, because I felt like there was this huge shift in the political world, and I didn't feel like I was doing anything to, kind of counter it, because I was in this echo chamber type environment, where a lot of people had similar ideologies, and I didn't feel like it was super productive to just kind of lament everything that was happening with the people around me. I kind of wanted to be in a place that I felt like was more real life in a way, instead of this isolated bubble in upstate New York where not much is actually going down politically. So I was like, I was feeling kind of just restless, and like I wasn't being impactful, and I became much more interested in politics too. And I was like, I think I want to be in a place that's a little bit more, has more relevancy in the political world. There's more political activism opportunities too. And also I was just pretty bored there. That's the other reason I didn't really like it, is because, it didn't provide the same like electricity that I thought college was supposed to. I was, I thought I was like doing everything I could have done, and it was like a semester in, and I was like, well, is this it? Like, I was kind of expecting something more. I think it was just a feeling that was deep within me, that kind of allowed me to realize that it wasn't the place for me. And luckily, we had so many people come into life school, alumni of the program, and talk about how transferring is a really normal thing. And if that's something that you want to do, you should do it, because you're going to look back on your time and then realize that, you or feel some sort of regret that you didn't do it. So I felt empowered by that. And kind of going on the sister theme, I had always visited my sister in Charleston, which is where she went to school. And I thought it was a super cool city. And South Carolina being a very relevant political state, and one of the first states to primary, and just a lot of significant politicians coming out of that state. And, it being a community that is it's overall a very liberal community, but it also is in a red state, a very red state, has a very troubled kind of political history, obviously. I was like, that seems like the best place to go, the most perfect place to go to kind of, get involved politically and engage in the world around me. So I went there, and it turns out it was a really good decision. I felt like I was able to get much more involved in community work. So I also worked for an office on campus that was, it was the Center for Civic Engagement. So we did a lot of community work, and we led trips for students, like alternative spring break trips. So instead of going on vacation, you could do a service learning trip, and an Earth Literacy Center in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, that kind of thing, and learn about it and bring what you learn with you back to the community of Charleston and implement those things that you learn. That was kind of the model for that. So I was very involved with that. Also did a cappella, which was where a lot of my social circle was. And yeah, it was a really, really good decision. And then the primaries for the 2020 election rolled around, and I got kind of involved with that stuff too. I even was able to ask Bernie Sanders a question on TV at a CNN town hall, which was
I remember that.
Yeah, that was awesome. And then that was also around the time that they were removing a lot of Confederate statues. So that was
Right.
involved in a lot of that stuff. And they took down the John C. Calhoun statue, which was like one of the tallest structures in
Huge.
Charleston.
Yeah.
So that was really significant. So it was a really exciting place to be. You had to weigh the good and the bad of, being in a place that had such a troubled history, but also being a part of, a movement that felt like you were doing something to make all the wrongs right in a way. So I was really happy with my decision, and I learned a lot. I was around, people that I had not been around before, people from South Carolina and all different parts of the country. I was very used to kind of a specific type of person from the suburbs of New York City. And so it really got me out of my comfort zone, I think, which was important. And it was a real city. So, from the get-go, I was, I had to like communicate with a landlord and, to talk about rent and, things like that, and exist within a city, which a lot of my peers from high school weren't doing, like living on a college campus and not being in a kind of like a real community. So I feel like it gave me those adult skills maybe a little bit faster, and it kind of gave me an advantage there. So it was really it was a fun decision. Yeah.
It's interesting, listening to you guys talk about that experience right after high school. It feels like your core values had already started to crystallize, right? I mean, there are values embedded in these decisions that you each made. What do you think those values were, and where did they come from? Like, how do you think you figured out what really mattered to you and what those core values were?
That's a really good question.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, I think like it was the people that I was around in high school, I think, for just like I think all the people or a lot of the people we grew up with kind of saw what was going on around us, and for some reason were empowered enough to question those things and all communicate with each other about, like, how do we feel about this? Like, is this right? Or is this not the way things should be, but they're just the way things always have been? I think life school, honestly, was a really big part of facilitating those kinds of conversations. And for the first time, I kind of echoing a sentiment from before, like allowing us to question and like actually have conversations about these things that just kind of exist in this world around us that we've never really come to terms with. And then I think from that, in a funny way, it kind of became cool to be to care about the world, like, and to like be and to enjoy being outside, and from that enjoy wanting to conserve what our outdoor world, and that leads into like talking about climate change, and then that becomes a political issue. So I think it was like kind of, in a way, it was like trendy to care about things. Like it was like this movement that I think we grew up in, and we all kind of bounced that sentiment off of each other, and all wanted to live kind of like mission driven or at least virtuous lifestyles after that. And that was part of our life decisions that came after that. So
especially in those formative years, like the Trump campaign starting our junior year of high school, like that was it was interesting, like how politics got really energized in that frame of time. And I guess every time around they say it's the most important election of your lifetime. So, but I think given that was the first one we could vote in, it really felt extra prescient. I really, that's interesting what you said about the values that our community valued, because like sure there were our direct friendships and the life school, where it definitely felt like it was extra important to appreciate the natural world around you and be progressive. But also, I think growing up in Chappaqua, I feel like we diss Chappaqua because of just the fact that it's just very white and affluent and not super progressive, but at least to the left. And it definitely was a place where we grew up with this value that being smart is cool, and something that you want to be. Like you want to be smart in Chappaqua. And I was reading that Atomic Habits book that one of the chapters was about how we kind of grow to actually enjoy and like get that like dopamine release and that validation when we exhibit traits that match what's valued in our community. Like the example they gave in the book was these two parents wanted to make, I can't remember what they did for work, but they wanted to make their kids chess prodigies. And they were like, well, let's play chess with them all the time and train them, like do it for hours and hours from when they're young, because then they'll want to be good at chess. They won't be forced to be good at chess. They'll want that. And like when interviewed later in their lives, the kids were asked, do you, like, was it relentless? Do you feel like you were forced to do it? But the answer was no, like they wanted to do it. Like they'd have to be like, hey, go to bed, stop playing chess in your room. No. So I don't know, growing up in a community where being smart was a valuable thing and caring about the world was a valuable thing, I think has really affected me and maybe us to this day. Definitely. Because he actually did a virtuous career. I just went into consulting. No offense to consultants. I know. But the core values, and I think I'm still trying to figure out, what my core values are, because I feel like sometimes the things that I do want are too vague, and I am starting to realize that, like, yearning for adventure, despite being maybe cliche and vague, I definitely feel like I exhibit more than the average person. And like, I just want variety in my life. I'm an Epicurean in that sense, to be philosophy major on.
Wow, look at you.
But not in the colloquial sense of Epicurean, where you want the finer things, but like in the like actual Epicurus, really, his thing was like, okay, yeah, sure, you don't need much to be happy. You can live a really simple life, but like if you're just trying to be like a minimalist, you shouldn't just be eating like pasta for every meal. Like you can have, like, to be happy, you have a little bit of variety. Like you're not being a glutton if you want to have some variety in your diet. And like I think that's the same thing. I just like variety. I like to do different stuff all the time. It was fun going to be a firefighter for a while. And then I was like, oh, I did the liberal artsy vibe in high school. I'm going to go to a big school. And I was like, school's 4 years. I just want to do something else. Let me do this in 3 years. And that's also why I did consulting. I'm like, I like the idea that it's a new project every few months. Like that seems fun. I don't have to decide on a specific career path. I can just kind of do all this other stuff. And also it's why we went on the Appalachian Trail. Like both of us want a fun adventure. We love the outdoors. Like, why not do it if you can?
Right. So what happened after college that got you to here? Like fill in that gap. Like what'd you do and why? And then how did that lead you both to go like, hey, let's hike the Appalachian Trail together? Like,
yeah, well, after college, I moved to, I was at home for a bit. Obviously, we were waiting out the pandemic. So spent the pandemic with my parents in Utah. That's where they moved to. And then went back to, they also kept their place in New York where they were all still moving stuff. So then I lived in New York when I started my job in October. I got the offer in like 2019. So it just got pushed back to October. And then I worked remote at a Big Four consulting firm for a few months before moving into the city with some friends, and had a pretty mediocre time in 2021, New York City. Still pretty COVID-y. A lot of my friends were still in school because I graduated early, and a lot of them ended up getting masters anyway. And work wasn't in person, so it was just kind of hard to meet new people. But I did make some friends, have a good time. I was going to move out, then jump on a friend's lease. And in the meantime, this was like early 2022. I was Airbnb-ing around in a few other cities before moving back to New York. Visited DC for a weekend where Ben was living. And I was like, wait, this is so fun. He had a big group of friends that were really cool. DC, there's more space, more greenery. And I'm like, I always thought DC was lame. Who knew it was cool? So I was like, man, this place rocks. And he was like, you could move in if you really want to. And I was like, are you sure? You don't mind? And I said, okay. So I moved into this house of 5 dudes, which you'll hear more about the origin of when it's Ben's turn. And I had a great time in DC for a year and a half. While I ended up not getting sponsored by my employer to go to grad school. It's kind of the main reason I ended up prepping to get an MBA, Master's of Business Administration, kind of for the same reasons as I've done everything else. I like money. I don't want to get pigeonholed. It's a nice general degree where I can do more. I can figure it out later. And my employer was going to cover it. At least I thought they were. So I was like, easy. So I'll just prep for this master's program. That seems like a fun thing to do. You can get the variety, do something else. Even though at the end I ended up getting promoted to the role that they hire you in when you finish an MBA, I'm like, why not? Just have some fun for 2 years. Waste some time, waste some money, have some fun. So they ended up not sponsoring me. So I was like, okay, well, screw you guys. I'll just quit early and do the Appalachian Trail. Ben, you want to come? And that's like, yeah, sure. Because it's something we were always familiar with. It's something that was definitely a bucket list item, as I think it is for a lot of people, where you hear about it once and you're like, I want to do that one day. And I was like, oh, what if I could go on a fun adventure now that I don't have to work in my job anymore? Like, what a perfect amount of time. I'm basically just taking a gap year before going to college, grad school. And Ben was in the outdoors club. I was like, he totally wants to. The question is, can I get him like want to work his schedule? We have to quit his job. But I remembered he was saying stuff about maybe wanting to leave his job and try something else. And so I ended up convincing him, and it rocked. And I realized it would have made way more sense for Ben to go first because there's so many things I'm referencing that you need to know about in his story. But now you have a little hint, a little taste. Right. And that's my story. Tell me about your time in DC.
Okay. Are you the interviewer now?
I'll be the interviewer.
So after college, as Adam said,
it's my trail name.
Yeah. Went back home. I was trying to figure life out a little bit. Ended up at first working just like a service job. I worked at a restaurant in upstate New York near where my parents were living, because they had moved from Chappaqua with a few people from high school, and we were all just kind of like, well, this sucks. This is supposed to be like the most independent period of time in our lives where we're supposed to be doing anything we want. And we're like stuck inside living with the same people that we've known our whole lives. What a blast. But we made the most out of it. And then I was just, applying. My interest lied in kind of the environmental sphere and the climate world. One of my minors in college was environmental sustainability studies, and it was just like kind of a line of work I fell into because I had a lot of exposure to that kind of thing in college with the outdoors club, with the various service learning trips that I led that tended to be environmentally focused. So I was like, let's make this into a career. And luckily I landed a job at a climate nonprofit, which is Al Gore's climate organization. It's called the Climate Reality Project. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I got like a job. Everyone's looking for a job. No one could find one. I got one that I really seemed like it's going to be really interesting and that I'm into. So they had me move to DC in 2021. And I kind of really like the concept of moving for a job. Because I was like, there's so many cool places to live. I'm never going to be able to figure out the right place. But if your job kind of chooses it for you, I was like, that's the best outcome because I don't have a choice in the matter. I'm just moving to a cool place and I have to live there. So moved to DC, and I also had somewhat of a connotation of DC that not lame, but just like, it's no New York, right? New York's the hippest city out there. But I found that it's like a really, really wonderful place to be, especially as a young professional. There's a lot of other young people here who are moving here for their jobs, who are from elsewhere like yourself. And It's really just easy to meet people. Everyone's super friendly. Everyone's looking to make friends. So it was really easy to, I moved into a group home of 5 people, became friends with all my roommates who were all strangers to me prior. And, through their friends and random connections I had in DC and my work friends and their work friends and mutual friends, very quickly kind of a big group of people formed. And it's just, it was really easy to kind of do social networking. There's a lot of professional networking too, but that's besides the point. So it was a really nice few years in DC. I ended up working at the climate organization for a little over 3 years by the time I was done. And I, like Adam referenced, I was kind of warming up to the idea of trying something different. I didn't know if this is where I wanted to be forever. It was the kind of place where, people stay for a little while, but they usually move on. And I just didn't know how much longer I had there. I think the work that I was doing was really interesting. It was like communications work, working with volunteers, kind of like bring them into our network after they go through one of our trainings that's led by Al Gore, and giving them the resources to continue their climate activism. So I really enjoyed it. It was really awesome, but I was just like, I don't know, could be time for something different. Which is around the same time when Adam said, hey, didn't get sponsored to go to grad school from my employer, which I was really rooting for him to get, obviously. So I was bummed, but it ended up being working out in our favor because we got to go on the adventure of a lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like interesting. The timing just worked out really well for both of you. Adam, what was it about not getting sponsored for the MBA that you felt was like a deal breaker with that company? Like,
well,
why was
it was less that and more that if I got sponsored, I would have been required to work up to leaving for grad school. So because I wasn't sponsored, I now had the freedom to leave early and still go to grad school. So I did all this prep, got a great GMAT score, got into some top schools. Ultimately, I was like, okay, I still want to do the MBA, even if it's not sponsored. So what a great opportunity where I can
liberating.
I have plans for the fall, no matter what happens today. So I was like, what can I do with my time? Because I kind of get to press the reset button again in the fall, starting, well, not really fall, August 12th. And it's just like, it's coming up. Yeah, it's coming up real close. Well, plus, ultimately, I got a full ride, so it's as if it was sponsored. So now I just got free grad school, and I don't have to return to my employer afterwards. I got to kind of figure out what's next. But it's funny what you're saying about your job picking your city for you. It's nice when certain decisions are made for you in a way, despite the fact that you did make the decision to apply to school. One thing I thought about was when I was gonna get sponsored was I was like, oh no, if I get sponsored, I have to return to my job for 2 years. Boo-hoo. Then I can figure out what I want to do after. But now I'm like, shoot, now I gotta figure out what I want to do in 2 years. Even though I guess I could go back into consulting for 2 years, I liked that I was forced to do it. Right. So it's interesting.
Well, it's interesting too, though, that you think about the impact that AmeriCorps had on you, where even just a few months in, you realized, oh, I want to go to a different school. Who knows how the MBA is going to impact you, right? I mean, it's you could have one inclination now, and then a year from now, you could be like, holy cow, I want to do something completely different, right?
Well, as I change my mind that often. I do.
We can get into it at some point, but every day was a different career path that he was going to take.
Ben, I've decided at the time he was Wonka. I decided I know what I'm going to do. He'd be like, okay.
All right, so let's get into the trail. So first of all, for people who don't know, so the Appalachian Trail is this hiking trail. It starts in Georgia, right? And goes to Maine, or Maine to Georgia, depending on your perspective, right? How long is it?
About 2,200 miles. I think 2,198.
2,198. Wow. Why was that something you wanted to do?
Yeah, it's It's funny because now that once we decided to do it, I was like, I actually have trouble figuring out like when I realized it even was something I wanted to do. I definitely first heard about it when my family was doing like a road trip when I was younger. We listened to the audiobook for a walk in the woods. It's funny that that's like the go-to Appalachian Trail book because they don't even finish it or get very far. But
Can I just interrupt and
Yeah.
say there might be some people who are offended by the pronunciation. Is some people call it the Appalachian Trail. It's a regional thing.
Well, in a way, it's a regional thing. It's one of those things where it is named after the Appalachian people of the area of Appalachia. So people like Southern Appalachia say Appalachia and are like, this is the right way to say it. And then some people are like, no, we just say it regionally in the Northeast Appalachia. But it's kind of like how like Nevada is Nevada, even though everyone else outside of Nevada says Nevada. It doesn't change the fact that it's not Nevada. It is Nevada. So it's one of those things. Everyone in the Northeast says it wrong. So some people think. But yeah.
Wow.
There's lots of fights in we had a viral TikTok about it and lots of fights in the comments about how we said Appalachia.
I just want to save myself and Twitter from canceling.
Okay.
Well, we're hurting your engagement because if we didn't say that, you might have gotten a lot of angry comments, which would have boosted ratings and everything.
Maybe we'll start a conversation.
All right, good. Well, hopefully there'll be some people who'll be insulted still that I didn't know that coming in. So they'll be in the comments. That's good. But in the end, we did the right thing and cleared up misconceptions.
Right.
Awesome.
Resume.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so listen to this book, Walk in the Woods, when I was younger, and I was like, this seems super cool. Like, I want to do this. Then occasionally, I guess, maybe it popped up on Instagram or it got referenced, and I was like, that always seemed like a cool thing to do. Like, if I were to go on like a several month-long adventure, I would want something with a bit more purpose. I don't want to just be like just going to a city and just figuring out what to do. I feel like I'm too antsy. I don't want to have to be like, I need to have like an easy to make, easy to follow, exercise-oriented plan. Like, I don't know why it felt right. I don't think I thought about it too logically. I was just like, it feels very right. I want to do this one day. I have this big chunk of time that's coming up. Why not do a long through hike? And I was just like, yeah, this is the move. Like, it just felt very, very right. I didn't even think that too much.
Yeah. Like people call it the trail. So in a way, it kind of feels like if you're going to go on like a hiking adventure and you have a few months to do it, like this is the trail to do. The AT is the one. It's the pinnacle. But yeah, I mean, I think similarly, like as a kid, I always knew that the AT existed. And I just was fascinated by the concept of like, so you're telling me it's like an I-95 situation, right? Like I always was fascinated by that as a kid too. Like there's this one road that spans the entire eastern seaboard. Like you could be on the same road, be in an entirely different region of the country. And I was like, that's so cool. Like you can just walk on the same path. You follow the same trail markers. There's a white blaze on the trees all throughout the entire trail. It's one consistent path that goes all the way through. I was like, that's really cool. It's just like a fascinating concept. And I was like super into it. And I remember even like as a kid, I would kind of like look up the route. And I remember distinctly being like, does it go through our county, Westchester County? And I like looked, I zoomed in and it goes through 0.3 miles, just like a tiny little sliver of the county. When you cross the Bear Mountain Bridge, you go in like northwest corner there, and then you go up into Putnam County. And I was just like, that's kind of cool. Like Westchester has part of the AT. So it was actually cool to like do that part and be like, I remember looking this up as a kid.
And to get picked up by our parents at different points along the trail too.
Right.
Like feels like home.
Yeah.
Who knew it was so close this whole time?
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that was kind of similar to Tweedle, to Adam. Was kind of my mindset about the AT. So when obviously he came to me and asked if I wanted to do it, and he always likes to give me credit being like, well, actually Ben was the one who wanted to do it at first, because I had like an idea that I might do it after college. I was like, this is going to be the mission. This is going to be my life-changing kind of, my parents went backpacking in Europe after college. I'm going to do the Appalachian Trail. But then that dream was squashed when COVID happened, and I hadn't really done any planning for it anyway. So I don't think I was actually going to do it. So yeah, I wouldn't have done it if he hadn't come up to me and asked me if I wanted to do it. But over the years, we've definitely been each other's adventure buddies, and we are also each other's yes men. So like pretty much when one person goes to the other and asks if they're like up for an adventure, the other person will say yes. And this was like definitely on a different scale, but I still felt like I needed to say yes to continue practice of being a yes man. So
we both love adventure, and I think for each other and for other people, like if I'm asked to do something, my answer is just usually yes. I'm like, why not?
yeah.
It's it's fun
Which
to
is
have.
a great way to go through life. Right?
Yeah, I think I watched Jim Carrey's Yes Man, and I was like, that's stuff. Like that is great.
That's your role model.
I actually think about Jim Carrey's Yes Man. I'm like, that is the right way to live life. Just say yes to every new opportunity. Not literally yes to everything, which is how he gets into a little trouble in the movie. I won't spoil it for your viewers. It's a great flick.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Okay, well, you have to.
Oh, time to watch.
I mean, right before the Appalachian Trail, we went on a really sick. He was like, you know, they have a marathon in Greenland. I've always wanted to go to Greenland, and I'm like, you've always wanted to go to Greenland. I got rejected from the Greenland Fulbright. I want to go to Greenland. And so I was like, can I come? And so we ran a marathon in Greenland, like a few months.
It was like
before.
October.
Oh yeah, it was a bunch of months before.
Yeah.
What?
4 months before we went on the trail. And that was sick. We went on this big European adventure, big adventure crew, right?
I was like, wow, for the first time in my life, I'm making my own money. Like I can like take paid time off and spend it to go on an adventure. And I was like, why? Like similar to you, like why go on a vacation when you can do kind of like an adventure oriented thing and still experience a place authentic, but be doing something like very, kind of like adventurous and cool. And it's something that is like, for sure will be a memory, instead of just like another trip, So inspiration for that. So then first was the Greenland Marathon and then the AT. So the next thing we do is going to have to be like, we're like going to need to go to
space.
Space. That's next. Wow. Okay. So it's maybe before we get to the AT, like the marathon, like you guys are throwing that out like, oh yeah, and we did this marathon in Greenland. Like, what was that like? Like both the training and the accomplishment of it, as well as like doing it.
Well, the training is kind of funny because we had both signed up for the half. There's a half marathon and then there's a full marathon. And Adam was already planning on doing the New York City Marathon the following weekend. And I just like hadn't been training for a marathon. I'm a runner, but like I wasn't in marathon shape.
If you're a runner, you can always do a half marathon, I feel like.
Right. So we got there and there were other people on like the same tour that we were on, probably like, I don't know, 80 other people or something like that, like all doing the same thing, experiencing Greenland and going on the run, either the half or the full. And we were like some of the youngest people there.
And like like fittest too. Like
so
there are people who seem pretty out of shape, who are really pretty old, but like that's the thing about marathon training is it's not really, you can't see it. It's very much internal, the endurance skills.
Yeah. So they were like, you guys are doing the marathon, right? Like not doing, and we were like, we got tired of having to say that we were doing the half marathon.
And we're gonna tell people we went all the way to Greenland to just do a half marathon. And everyone's like, they ran a marathon in Greenland to be like, actually it's a half marathon.
Yeah. We were like, it's just gonna be worth it to push through and do the full marathon. Like we have to.
We were like ice spikes. We were on an ice sheet. It was just in the snow. A polar bear was there the day before we got there, and they were like, if that polar bear came a day later, it would have killed a bunch of you.
So
Arctic Circle.
Ultimately, we decided it's way cooler to do a full marathon in the Arctic Circle than a half marathon. So we pushed through and we did the full marathon.
Spontaneously decided to do a marathon.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Adam had been training basically for a marathon.
Yeah, I was training for it.
Like, what the heck?
It was really interesting. Yeah, Greenland, as you probably know, and like you were saying, is a huge ice sheet. So it's ginormous. So you start off, we're in this town called Gangerschlusswag. It was a former U.S. military base, but now it's just like the international airport and the surrounding town.
Soon to be changed.
Yeah. I don't want to date myself on this podcast, but But yeah, so and it's like a town of like 500 people. The airport, when we got to the airport, they were like, we were like, okay, so like, where do we bring our stuff? Like, where's the hotel? They're like, oh, you just walk upstairs. Like the hotel was just the second floor of the airport. It was a really cool, unique experience.
Tiny, yeah.
Yeah. And we did a bunch of like exploring around Greenland and the ice sheet and the actual marathon. Yeah, we were wearing spikes. It was a whole, we were wearing like a bunch of layers and down jackets and things like that. So it's different, obviously, from not really anything you can train for fully. And it was definitely a challenge, but we got through it and felt very accomplished after that. And then yeah, that was the kind of moment where like neither of us, like even a few years ago, we weren't runners. Like we didn't have any athletic feats. But we're able-bodied people, luckily. And like that was kind of the moment where we realized you can just train for something and work your way up to being able to do it. And like these things that seem totally unattainable to me, it's like, yeah, other people do marathons. I don't do marathons, It's like, wait, actually you can. Like you have the ability within you. You just need to like work for it and train and put in the time. And then like you could be one of those people. So I never ever thought I would be someone who would like run marathons or do a full Appalachian Trail through hike. But if you have the right circumstances at your disposal, if you're lucky enough to have that, it is something that is possible if you want to make that a reality, which yeah, was like, if I looked back in 5 years and thought about the thing, like the adventures we've gone on, and like,
right.
I would not have expected, I wouldn't have known that person was me that was doing those things. So
Wow.
it's yeah.
Wait, so okay, so one of you prepared actually for the marathon, the other one did not. But
And he won.
how did that affect?
Sorry. He outpaced, he beat me in the marathon despite him being not trained.
Wow, are you embarrassed by that?
I did rationalize it where I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to push to my limits because I have a marathon next week that I actually care about. So I was planning on running the first half and then walking the second half, which is kind of what I did.
Yeah.
But did you end up running New York the next week?
Yeah.
You were you ran back-to-back marathons.
Yep.
What was that?
According to Strava, I got my first under 4-hour marathon, but according to the official marathon people, I didn't. But I'll just.
Well, let's go with Strava. What was that like? I mean, not only that, like you traveled internationally, right? Because to get to Greenland, don't you have to go to like, I don't know, Iceland or Denmark or someplace?
Copenhagen,
right?
It's just really roundabout.
So jet lag, all that. You've just done this marathon, even running and walking combo. You come back and then it's like, oh, no big deal. Run a New York marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy, I like to say, as the kids say, he has that dog in him. He just like can push and push and push like no other person I've seen.
Wow.
He usually crashes eventually, and then like we'll be dancing at the bar with his eyes closed because he's so tired. But it's really amazing the things that he can push himself.
As if who can push and push and push and never crash? This guy. Inspired.
It's
where did you guys get that?
The dog?
Yeah. I think you naturally have it, and I need to keep up with it.
I think you naturally have it. I have to keep up with it.
So maybe that's what it is. Maybe we're discovering that.
I think it's a certain level of positivity, but also a little bit of FOMO. Like I'm like, I don't wait. If other stuff happening, I want to be there. Like I don't like if right.
Yeah. Like your 12-year-old self still.
Yeah.
Right. But instead of it being about money, it's about the experience and not wanting to miss out. Right.
Yeah, but also I think it's like, I think maybe it's a delayed gratification thing, which I'm usually not that great at, but it's like, I know this is going to be fun and I'm going to be happy I did it in hindsight. Like I'm going to, even if it doesn't, maybe it also comes from just being, even though I think I only really started running in 2022, but I think it's just the knowledge that like, okay, when I get like, especially on a cold morning, I know when I don't want to go out there. And when I get outside immediately to start my run, like the first half mile is the hardest part where I'm like, I hate this. Why do I even run? Then you're like, wait a second, this rocks. It's so much fun. Like it's just knowing that if I force through and sacrifice like my immediate well-being, like my longer term well-being will maybe be higher.
That's great. Wow.
Yeah. I think part of it is just like seeing other people do it and being like, I want to be able to say that I did that too. And
Mm.
I think it really does help having somebody else who pushes you along, because I don't think personally I would be able to do either of those things without having somebody else like help motivate you. Um, and like we usually, like when we're taking on a difficult task, like we'll just say to each other, I'm worried that this is going to be too easy, just to like hype ourselves up a little bit and to, like make it feel, lift our confidence up a little, even though obviously it's not going to be easy at all.
Right.
But it's a good way to just kind of like get humorous about it and I guess motivate yourself a little bit. So I think for me, it's important to have another person who helps push you along.
Well, it's true in general, right? I mean, it's like putting on my life coach hat. Like if you're trying to change a habit, if you're trying to, embark on a new mission, whether it's like working out or whatever, like having an accountability partner is a huge difference maker, right? It's one of the reasons why people hire life coaches, is that they don't have one built in their lives. It's like, well, this person's going to be my accountability coach, right?
Right.
So it's great. You guys have that built in, your adventure partner who will always say yes to you and then help you accomplish the thing, because, you're kind of egging each other on and supporting each other. And that's pretty amazing.
I think it was also, especially on the trail, I think it was good that we shared a tent. Although some people thought it was crazy that we shared a tent. Because they're like, oh, what if you guys go at different paces? Like, there's no way you guys are going to keep doing that the whole way. But like, I wouldn't feel inclined to like take more zeros than I need or than we need. 0 days is the day where you don't hike. Because we have to stick together.
Right.
And like, I would want to push myself, but I mean, sometimes like, and if I'm not urgently like needing to run, like train for a marathon, and I like have plans to run the next morning, but I'm feeling tired, I'll be like, whatever, I'll just snooze until work. Like I can do that for myself, and I can let myself down, knowing that I'll be unhappy with that decision later, just because like maybe it's being kinder to myself, maybe it's just being too lenient with myself, not disciplined enough. Like when you have someone else, it's like, I know that this is what I want to do. And like, if I don't wake up and start hiking right now, like I'm letting my hiking partner down too. So you kept schedule, kept us on good mileage. I think both of us probably went faster than we would have otherwise.
Yeah.
You think I would have gone faster some days or gone more miles otherwise, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like ultimately we did faster because we were a duo.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's like
so. Okay, so what was like so when did you start? When did you start the hike?
Leap day.
February 29th, and it was a compromise because Adam was concerned that we were not going to finish quickly enough for him to get situated and everything before grad school. But I was concerned that if we started early, it was going to be way too cold. I was trying to tell him it actually gets cold in the South.
And I was like, man, it's Georgia. It's not going to be cold.
And it's like 6,000 feet elevation. Like it gets cold.
Snowed.
So we compromised for February 29th, which we were lucky we had this year because most years don't have that.
Otherwise, I don't know what we would have done.
But it was like, it's kind of February, kind of March. So it was perfect.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a fun day.
Yeah.
It only happens once every 4 years.
Right. What are you doing on leap day?
Unless it's every 400 years.
So, okay. So, and then you start, what was it like the first few days?
It was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Like 3 days in, we got caught in like some really cold rain, and we're like, okay, we're gonna push like 18 miles or whatever, how many we were gonna do. And then we got to a road, and some people were going to a hostel, and we were like, should we just go to a hotel? It's like we need to dry off. Like we're so early on. This is cold, impossible rain to hike in. Like nervous about our well-being, kind of. And so we stopped in Dahlonega, University of North Georgia's college town. Really cool. They had a special type of Brussels sprout kale hybrid vegetable called the kaleette that I love. So the first couple of days were brutal, and then like the first couple of weeks too, like it was cold. Every morning we'd wake up, he'd cry a little bit, he'd be like crazy. Like we are not, the second we got, so like getting out of your bed in the morning's hard.
Your bed being a sleeping bag.
No, I mean in general, getting out of your bed's hard. Getting out of your bed when pulling down the sleeping bag is exposing yourself to freezing cold air is also very hard, a little harder, I think. And then like you're like open the tent and you're like, oh, it's even 10 degrees colder than this. And then you get out and you're like, let's pack this up as quick as possible. Like every morning was like a race. Like how fast can we get moving? Like we were like, okay, we're not gonna cook, we're not gonna boil any water, make coffee, because I'd rather just start moving than drink a hot drink. Because
So it would be like
Wow.
oatmeal straight to the face.
Dry oatmeal straight to the face. Don't waste time mixing with water.
And the first bit of it is difficult too, because I mean, I think more kind of like mentally, because going into it that only 25% of people who attempt the full through hike actually complete it. So 75% of people don't finish the entire thing. And it's something crazy. I don't know the exact number. It's something crazy. Like 80% of the people who quit within the first 100 miles. Wow. And there's this one spot like 30 something miles in, called, what's it called again?
Mountain Crossings?
Mountain Crossing, yeah. And that's like a famous place where, they call it like where your hike goes to die. And it's only 30 something in out of 2,200. So I think going into it, I was never worried, or I never like had the desire to quit, but I was a little worried in the beginning. I was like, okay, like, am I going to feel like, am I just going to have a moment that just comes up at mile like 60 where I'm just like, I can't do this anymore? Because it seems to happen to a lot of people, So I was like a little worried about that, but it never, and luckily that never happened.
Or like even just worried about like getting an injury, because it hurts out there, and like lots of people we meet would like mess up their foot, mess up their ankle, like especially early on when we were like, I had shoes that didn't have any arch support, which it was a popular shoe because people actually liked that about the shoe. It would like, because you had your foot to spring or something, it helped your knees. It was killing me. Like I was worried that I was like messing up my feet. I was worried I was messing up my Achilles. And like I was like, what if tomorrow it like snaps and then we're done? So I think it was, getting in the mindset that there's so many miles ahead of you too. Like 4 months, 5 months is not an amount of time that you can conceptualize. So when we weren't out there thinking like we're working towards a goal we can even see, it was just like, we just have to accept that this is our life now. Like that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Like accept that life now is hiking. Because when you start a semester at school, that's about the same amount of time as we were on the trails, a full semester. You don't think on your first day of classes like, how am I getting to the end of this class? You're like, how do I accept this new reality of the new semester?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So that was an interesting part of it. But also, I mean, it was exciting. Like I had a great time right at the beginning because there was this new life and like new set of experiences and like way of living that was really fun. Meeting like every single person you pass, you talk to. Every time you set up camp, there's new people who are like, why are you out on the trail? Like, tell me about yourself. And you're meeting also people from like, while there is a lack of, there's some, why can't I think of the word? Homogeneous. It's a little homogeneous. Like it's very white, very male on the trail. But at the same time, it is, and you'd think it would be less socioeconomically diverse because people can afford to take this amount of time off their life. But it's probably the most number of blue collar workers I've interacted with in my life, growing up in an affluent town, going to college, and living in New York City, where my friend group are all like other young professionals, or living in DC where it's young professionals. So I did feel like there was a diversity of backgrounds that we interacted with that I would never consider a 72-year-old plumber from New Hampshire to be like my friend in regular life. But like, I felt like Mountain Goat was our buddy and when he was walking with us for a few days, especially like this guy Coffee. Like it was super fun walking with this guy Coffee who was, he lives in New Hampshire too. He's like 60 something. And like, it didn't feel like paternal at all. It just felt like he was like another adventurous dude who's just out there with us, which was awesome. It like got rid of a lot of like normally constructed barriers between you and others.
It's the great equalizer in a lot of ways. Everyone's going through this same experience. We're all working towards the same goal. You have so much to bond about with people because you can talk about that one, mountain that you had to climb, yesterday that you all had to experience because you're all doing the same exact trail. So the camaraderie is unmatched. And it was just really fun to bond with people over that. So yeah, like you said, I think going into it, while it was nerve-wracking and it was very difficult physically and mentally, it was also like, whoa, like we're doing the thing where we call people by their trail names. We're giving people their trail names. And we're like roughing it. Like it was like a rite of passage almost when I like smelled myself for the first time and I was like really bad. And I was like, This is what they talk about. This is it. Like I'm doing.
We were so numb to it that like when we saw my parents, when we saw friends, they were like, I could smell you from like several feet away. Like we started being able to smell hikers who were like day hikers. We'd be like, I can smell perfume.
Yeah, and
You see them.
and they call that town smell. When someone coming, for a day hike, they smell all good, like they've just been showered, and you're like, town smell.
You can smell the detergent, the perfume, everything from a mile away.
How did you each get your trail names?
We were at one point, my dad, like on the phone on the trail, called us Tweedledee and Tweedledum, which maybe is a little cheating because I was like, we're on the trail. And like Tweedledee and Tweedledum kind of just like felt right because we were just like, we're silly, we're having fun, we're like making dumb jokes. Like it feels like kind of like a goofy duo, nice name. And mine was just a much shortened to Tweedle, even though we were both Tweedle. And then he was being abbreviated to Dumb, and
which I didn't like.
And partially, someone else was like, you don't want to be dumb. Like, it's not good.
Yeah.
Then you can say our friend Froggy named.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a friend named Froggy who we met like maybe our first week on the trail, and we were just sitting down having lunch one day. She was a little bit behind us, so she passed us on the trail. And she was like, you know what? You really give me Willy Wonka vibes. Like you just have this energy about you that's you just remind me of Wonka. And then she even said,
wow,
you even look a little bit like Timothy Chalamet, which she said it. So
it must be true.
I don't think it's true.
Wait, I can see it. Yeah.
So just squinch really hard.
Yeah.
So then, then she just started calling me Wonka. Then everyone started calling me Wonka, and it felt like it fit super well. And I just really liked how Tweedles was just like a shorthand for Tweedledee, but it was because you were Tweedledee. Probably it was like the first Tweedle in the order of Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yeah.
It just like became your name, and it felt. Also, he whistles a lot.
If you go with the definition of Tweedle, it is
whistling. Yeah.
So it kind of just worked, and we just like. We tried to force a lot of names before that, but these two were definitely the most organic ones that came to us. That we were named a bunch of times in the first like 2 weeks maybe, and we were like, yeah, I'm gonna go by that, and then it just didn't feel right because it just wasn't organic. These names came to us, they felt right, and then we just rolled with it.
I think vividly for Tweedles, we went with our friends when we were passing through Gatlinburg. Which is in a way it's a trail town because it's near the Smoky Mountains. So we got a trail, went to Gatlinburg, and went to Dollywood. If you don't know what Dollywood is, Dolly Parton themed theme park.
I must visit.
And when we were there with a few of our buddies we made on trail, they were really leaning into calling me Tweedle.
Right.
And you had just been named Wonka too. So it was like they really felt like they got cemented at Dollywood.
There, yeah. It's a nice connection to Dolly Parton now. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We'll always be connected.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that was but yeah, I think I felt a little abandoned, I'll be honest. Being Tweedle. But I eventually got better. But I like to pretend I was still upset about it. So every time I told the story, this guy abandoned me. Full name Tweedledumless Tweedledee. That's my full name. But otherwise I'm Tweedle.
I'm glad you were able to somewhat carry on. What were the worst moments for each of you?
Oh. I'm trying to think of like specific moments where I just like.
There were general bad moments. I'm just trying to think of one that's definitely bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think generally I think it was most difficult at the end because the terrain was very difficult in New Hampshire and Maine. And kind of like the sentiment that Tweedle was expressing before, and now I can say that and the viewers understand what that means. Talking about like, you kind of just come to terms with the fact that the trail is just your life. Like you're not even thinking about the end because it's so far away. It's like you need to just you can't be counting down when you have 4.5 months left. You just need to be in the moment, recognizing this is your existence. But once you get close to the end, you're like, wait, I'm kind of counting down now. Like we're gonna get through this because physically, I mean, it's really a physically demanding trail. Like you're just constantly in pain. I woke up with my legs just like throbbing every night. You just have to wake up and be like, I have to do that all over again, 20 plus miles going up and down and up and down. So at the end, I think mentally it was really difficult. We were in like the most beautiful area, and it was fantastic, and we were with a really good group of people. So it was awesome for a lot of reasons. But knowing that the end is so near, so you do kind of start to count down, and you are letting your brain and body realize that like this is going to end.
Yeah, right.
And you're just like on zero. Tank is totally empty. But some way you have to find a way to push through. It was really difficult at the end, but obviously the ultimate prize was so near, so that made it better.
Yeah, there was like no big quit at that point, but it felt like I was like, I want to be done. Like I've had the feeling of I want to be done so badly, for a while. Especially because we were prepping. Like in my mind, it's like a book. The climax comes a little bit before the end. Like, and I felt like the climax I was preparing for was the White Mountains in New Hampshire. Because everyone says that's the hardest part. That's when you got to slow down your miles. But because I was mentally prepared for that, I was like totally into it. I'm like, okay, we planned to only do 15 instead of 20 miles today and the next couple days. And the train's hard, but like I knew it was coming. And then once we finished the Whites, then I'm like, wait, Maine is like basically just as hard, but nobody's like, people tell you it's really hard. But then you're like, you get to Maine and you're like, I'm basically done with the AT. I got to Maine. It's the last state. There's 280 miles left.
No.
And it trains more of the Whites like for longer, kind of. And your body's like just getting beat up over time. Like, and you feel like, and it just like, so I was like more sore than I ever was before. Like I hadn't had that much trouble walking. And other than like right at the beginning of the trail, like we were hobbling like crazy. They call it the hiker hobble, or you hobble after hiking. And so Maine, and then the bugs got way worse in Maine. I thought mosquitoes were bad. I started to like the mosquitoes because at least they didn't like bite you in a hard
the flies. The flies in Maine are crazy. Right?
The deer flies. We actually only ever saw the classic black flies a few times, but the deer flies are brutal. Moose flies. I got stung by bees a couple times randomly, and I wasn't even like bothering them. And
it was just scary because it's like, okay, you're climbing through boulder fields, climbing up mountains, being attacked by flies, and then suddenly there's this really treacherous river crossing that you come across, and you're like, if I fall in this, then I'm going to be swept away. So it's like all these compounding physically difficult, like scary and a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, especially we did it after a storm. We know someone got carried away a mile down the river, like when she fell. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I can think of a single moment, but I think that kind of like stretch of time
is
the most difficult for those reasons.
That's what I think. That's what I go to also. But now I think I'm realizing right now, really one hard part for me was people say like don't take extended time off trail in the middle. It'll make it really, really hard to get back on. And while we took like a whole week off, and I went to New York, and you went to North Carolina for a wedding. Coming back from that wasn't as hard because we were kind of close to home. And it just like, I don't know, it felt good to just be in the Northeast in New England finally. But coming back from DC, when we visited DC about halfway through, and we like got on, and I'm like, we were done with halfway, and now we're starting the second half. But I already feel like my entire life has been on this trail. Like, and we're about to do the second half, which is harder than the first half, and it's hot now. And I just ran into my ex in the city, and I'm all like messed up for like the first back, and like thinking about that all day. Like I was not doing well our first 2 weeks back from DC. But then like I started to, in a way that was also like a little bit of one of my favorite moments on trail, once I finally like readjusted to the trail, and I'm like, this is so nice that like this awful feeling I have that kind of felt like maybe a result of being back in society. Like I know that if I'm ever like really not doing well emotionally, I could just go and walk in the woods for a while. And like
that's powerful. Yeah. Wow. What were the best times?
Oh,
Dollywood.
Oh, baby. Dollywood was really cool because we were like 300 something miles in at that point. So it kind of finally felt like we were used to the trail in a way. And we were like experienced, like you can call yourself like not an official thru hiker because I haven't finished the hike, but like you're attempting a thru hike, you're like a solid enough miles in where people can take you seriously. And we were finally like forming these really cool friendships with people that we went to Dollywood with. And it was just like this moment in time. We were in this place, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, not a place that we would ever visit for any other reason, probably. In this crazy like theme park with these people that we met while hiking in the woods.
We're talking Scorpion Queen, Pipes, and Airbud.
Mm-hmm.
Great
people. And it was just like such a moment in time. And we were like, it was kind of just like, this is really special. This is like the circumstances that led us to this moment are miraculous. So yeah, I think that was really cool. There are a few other, kind of like really cool experiences. Are you
going to talk about Rangeley?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's like this one other kind of moment similar to that, like just a moment in time where we're just like, what is going on here? This is all the way back. This is all the way up in Maine. So lots of miles in between these experiences. It was just less than a month ago, which is crazy. It was the 3rd of July. We were going into a town called Rangeley, Maine, to do a resupply. We needed more food. We weren't going to stay there because it was a really busy touristy weekend in
July
this town.
4th weekend.
Yeah. So there was no affordable rates on rooms. We didn't really have a plan for how we were going to get back to the trail. And it was like we could have walked on the road to get back to the trailhead, but it would have been like 4 miles or something added on to all the other hiking we needed to do. So we didn't totally have a plan. So really the plan going into it, we verbally said like, ideally we meet someone who's nice enough to just like have us for the night.
And camp in their backyard.
Yeah. And that would be great. And we were with a bunch of other hikers too that were going southbound who we had met the night prior, and they were also in Rangeley. And we went to the town's IGA to go do our resupply. And we encounter this guy in his 30s, like kind of like very conventionally attractive dude. Super
cool
athletic
outfit,
looking.
Viper sunglasses, jewelry, tattoos.
Yeah.
Cool looking guy.
Cool looking dude. And his dad, who was like probably in his 70s. And he just started talking to us up about the trail, about through hiking. He shared that he had done a cross-country bike trip with one of his friends, so he was able to resonate with us and a lot of what we were saying, and we were bonding over the experience. And he was like, "By the way, you guys have a place to stay tonight?" We were like, "Actually, no, we don't." He was like, "Backyard is yours. Like, we'll pick you up after the fireworks tonight. We're gonna watch the fireworks together. We'll pick you up, and then we'll drive you back to our house. You can stay the night. We'll drive you back to the trail in the morning. You can pick up right where you left off."
You're adding his contact, and then he's like, "Yeah, just gives us his name, regular name, Martin Johnson."
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. And then on the walk back, I'm like, that guy had such rock star vibes. Like, I bet he's like famous because he mentioned he had like property in Nashville, and I'm like, property in Nashville. This guy's famous. We look him up, and it's like lead singer of this like boy band that was popular when we were in like middle school.
Like really popular. Like this guy has a song with Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Like
What?
His top 3 tracks are songs that are like reverberating in my brain to this day that I just like will start randomly singing the tune to, and I'm just like, so we were like, oh my god.
Yeah, and like boy band is doing them a little bit of a disservice because it was like pop punk. It was.
What was the name of the band?
Boys Like Girls.
They have a song. Like, the only one I recognized was "I used to be love drunk, but now I'm hungover. I love you forever."
That's like that's probably their most popular song.
Wow.
Great Escape's more popular.
Oh, there's a song that goes, "Throw it away, forget yesterday, we'll make a great escape." That's the other. And then they have another song with that. But whatever, we knew this. We knew who this guy was. So we were like,
amazing.
Everyone be cool. Like the person we're staying with tonight, we just learned that he's like a famous person.
And we messaged him being like, "Hey, can you host like 10 more people in addition to us?" That we just It was like, yeah.
So
Wow.
he picks us up after the fireworks, which by the way, some of the best fireworks I've ever seen over Rangeley Lake, which was also just a cool, like,
so beautiful.
We were like 10, 12 days out from finishing the trail. It was like this beautiful fireworks show in this random place. It was, another one of those kind of moments in time. And he picks us up, and we're obviously not going to go into this interaction being like, "Hey, by the way, we learned that you're famous."
Yeah.
So luckily, it just happened organically on the ride back from the fireworks. we were like, how'd you acclimate, going back into the real world after your bike trip? We're going to have to do that soon. So what are your best like tips and tricks? He was like, well, actually, it was a little different for me because like right when I got back, I had to go on a world tour with my band. So that gave us the avenue to then be
It's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's a little like before your time. Like they're called Boys Like Girls. We're like, oh, singers of The Great Escape.
right.
Honestly, wouldn't have if we just got the band name. I don't
Right.
think I would have gotten
In
it.
that
I had to
moment.
do my research beforehand to be fully sure.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So that was like,
Wow.
there's a saying on the trail that's just the trail provides, and it's just kind of like everything is going to align itself in a way. When you're down in the dumps or something, like someone's going to come through with like trail magic, like giving you a bunch of free food and like whatever other things you need to continue your hike. So there's a saying, the trail provides. And, I think for us, it just provided a lot of funny, random experiences like that are just like, we'll never forget.
I thought for sure that story was going to end with him trying to kill you.
It could have gone that way.
No, he wanted to protect us. He told us. Yeah, never mind.
That's amazing. But you're right. Like, it's interesting. When we were talking earlier, pre-trail stuff, it struck me that you guys seem really good at seeing the omens, right? And maybe generating the omens. I mean, maybe there's a certain amount of like law of attraction stuff in your life where you're putting out good energy. You've got some broader sense of what really matters, what you're trying to bring into your life. And then, the universe goes, okay, here you go. But you guys are good. Like a lot of people don't realize like, oh, here's the moment. Like Adam, your thing with the not getting sponsored in the NBA, it's like all of a sudden like, wow, that creates this opportunity where I've got this space of months that I could do this thing. It would be an amazing adventure with somebody that I really love doing adventures with. Like that's what the trail was, like Dollywood. I mean, it's taking advantage of these opportunities as they come along. Part of it's realizing the opportunity is even there and creating the possibility for it to happen. Right?
Yeah, because I think as someone who also, despite liking adventure, craves stability. On my way to get a little bit of both. For example, I did AmeriCorps, but I had a deferred college acceptance. I went on the Appalachian Trail, but I had a plan for the fall. So even people like me who really need stability, like can go do this thing. Well, the more adventurous among us can do it and like be like, this is what I want to do. Also, like, which is a lot of people out there in the trail are like, I want to figure out what's next, and this is part of my journey to figure out what's next.
Right.
As an interlude between what I already know is next. And so if you don't have the courage to do, to like figure it out as you go along, then you can do what I do, which is try to have something planned for the future, and then in the meantime, fill it in with something fun.
Well, you can call that courage, but I would also call that being responsible.
So, all right. So then you finished it. What was that like?
God,
I mean, you cried like a little baby.
It was like the biggest for me. It was first of all, you finish the AT if you're going northbound, Mount Katahdin, which is one of the most epic mountains. It's the tallest mountain in Maine. It's a very sacred mountain to the native people. Like it's in the middle of nowhere. There's not really any town near it, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. So that's really cool. And you can start seeing it from like 50 miles away when you're hiking up. So you're like, you catch a glimpse of Katahdin and suddenly you're like, oh my God, I can see the end. I can see the mountain. It's really epic. And then, so yeah, there's like, you need to hike in a specific place the night before you summit, if you're going to hike in like the state park that the mountain is in. So we're in that spot, and it was pretty awesome the way we planned the ending, because we planned to end on my birthday, which was not our initial plan when we started the hike. But once it became attainable and we were going a little faster than we thought, we were like, let's make that happen. So, I mean, for me, it was like, kind of a crazy moment. I was so restless the night before. And I knew, I only had 5.2 miles to get to the top of this mountain until I was done through hiking the AT. I was like, I have 5.2 miles. I couldn't sleep. So I just got up. It was still dark out, and I just like went for it and like went up there, shot up that mountain, got up to the top. It was absolutely gorgeous. And then I just, had this release of just I mean, I sobbed, quite frankly. Like, and I was still really
Wow.
up there. It was like still really early in the morning. And it was just, we went through a lot of hardship to get there. Just hiking that amount of distance, always figuring out logistics, planning when our next resupply is, figuring out how we're going to feed ourselves and live and survive, and just always being in pain while doing it. But so it was it was relief on one end, but it was also just a huge sense of pride and accomplishment, and realizing that, I set out to do something, and I did it, and it's just a really, really good feeling. So, and also like maybe a little bit of sadness too, that this experience that
Mm.
taken over our lives for so long was ending. Because it's just the only existence we knew for so long. You're so in that world when you're in it, because you're very present. You don't really have access to technology in the same way. You're with the same people. You're doing the same thing. Life takes a different shape. So it was also just kind of like mourning the loss of the experience. So yeah, and then I had the privilege of waiting up there for a total of like 4 hours, probably, waiting for some of our buddies to get up who were also finishing that day. And I mean, I'll let Tweedle get into it, but his parents were there too, which was really cool. So kind of just like waiting for everyone to get to the top and just reflecting and looking at the sights around me. And then of course there's getting down the mountain, because the trail actually ends at the very top of the mountain, but then you have to hike, which is, no one talks about.
It's a bit misleading.
Yes, right.
Well, it's actually, I think even though we wanted to aim for your birthday, I think the fact that we had to plan in advance for because I wanted my parents to come be there with us, because they wanted to hike up at the end. It's something some families do, where they hike out Mount Katahdin, or just Katahdin, not Mount Katahdin, because it's redundant. Katahdin is apparently a word that means mountain.
Oh, there you go. Mountain.
Mountain.
There you go.
I really wanted my parents to be there. They like to hike. They took me on my first hikes, and I knew my mom would be really excited to be a part of that. And my dad's a little terrified of heights, so he was freaking out on the way out. But
Wow.
it was really fun to have that plan. But it also caused us to rush a bit, because in our last like week or two, I think there were days where we're like, I really like this extra miles is pretty painful, and I don't really want to do it. And it's like I feel like we're rushing. But we have to get this date. I mean, worst case scenario, if like we really need to, we could push back, and my parents would understand. But it felt like we were pushing for that date. And if our only reason was to do it on your birthday, there's a chance we might have been convinced to push back, and everyone uses the rationale of, listen, this is like such a beautiful experience. You're going to be happy that you chose to take the extra time now and that you didn't rush, like later when you look back. But like looking back, I'm like, thank God we rushed. Like that's not the right advice. Yeah, like looking back, I'm happy and proud that we rushed, because pain is temporary, victory is forever, as they say. So anyone who's thinking of doing the trail or is on the trail now watching your podcast, if you're wondering whether or not to rush. Feels great. Oh, really good. Because we originally would have been done, like our plan if we didn't rush, and like I was like, I just want to be done by August 1st. Like I've had a great 2 weeks back in the world.
I think there's a happy medium too with that, like, because rushing implies you're not like taking in all the experience
Right.
around you. But like you are hiking all day. Like you're very immersed in it. Like it's not like if you take an extra 3 days, it's going to be all that different. If you're still doing everything you want to do, but still getting in more miles and making it so that you can meet your timeline, that's totally fine. You can still swim in all the lakes and enjoy all the scenery, and just hike a little longer that day, and still gives you the same experience, but gets you there a little quicker. So
Totally, yeah.
Wow.
We definitely did a good balance of going fast and soaking everything in.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you mentioned earlier about asking the rock star guy about re-entry? So what has re-entry been like, and what's been good about it? What's been hard? Or
everyone talks about this thing called post-trail depression, where you get back to the world and you just had so much structure for a while. This guy used the acronym, his name is Patience, at Hiker's Welcome Hostel in New Hampshire. He was like, you come out on the trail to get space. S, simplicity. P, purpose. A, adventure. C, community. And E, exercise or excessive exercise. Like all those things like bring me a lot of joy and bring everyone who goes to the trail a lot of joy. And you finish the trail and you lose a lot of that, where like life is really complex. You got to figure out where you're going to live. You are not getting all the endorphins of exercising all day long. You want to rest your body, of course. So you're staying still a little bit. I mean, we did both go on a run this morning, but it's something we both have actively been trying to avoid, but we're really fortunate too to be in a position where we had a trip to the Outer Banks planned with a lot of our friends in DC we're leaving on Sunday, we're coming back the following Sunday, and then I start school, so I have that structure planned in. And we also were both in New York with friends for a bit, and like I've been going out a lot. Like it feels really good. I love not having a job, not having school yet. So I don't think the post-trail depression has hit me at all. I think I've got post-trail jubilance.
And you're going to be, I don't know if it was, you're going to be living in like you're going to school in New York.
Yeah.
Specific. So
NYU.
Right.
It's for you, it's been like kind of cementing friendships that you're pursuing and, being able to embrace the new city that you're going to live in and, redeem yourself from the last time you lived there a little bit.
Yeah, because I feel like it was mediocre last time, and now I want it to be.
Yeah.
But have you had any of the post-trail depression?
I don't think I've had post-trail depression. I think, I mean, my main emotion was relief, and pride, kind of like what I said before. But I think to Tweedle's point, we always talked about how much purpose you have, so much purpose on the trail. Like literally every step you take, you're a step closer to this goal that it's like this really epic goal. And then it just ends. Like at one point you take your last step of the trail and then that's it. Like, it's over. So you have to kind of like shift your mindset a little bit and realize that not everything in life is going to feel that purposeful, I guess. Like you're not always, for 4.5 months, we had a mission. Even when we went off the trail, like when I went to a wedding or when we went and visited friends and went, we were still in the mode of like, but we're on the trail, really. Like we're here now, but like really we're on the trail. And it's, partially stressful, but it's also kind of really cool that we're in the middle of this big adventure. And then now it's just like, okay, you're just like another member of society again. And then so like I think it takes some getting used to, but it's been really nice to just like there's so many creature comforts you crave when you're out there. Just like being able to sit down all day and watch TV if you want to. Like that's unreal. And then just like being able to, not stress out about having to walk 25 miles the next day and just like be able to stay up late and hang out with friends and like whatever you want. So it's really nice to be back to normal life. I mean, I think for me, I don't want to give the impression that I know like that this just like solved all my problems, because I quit my job before this, and Tweedle mentioned that it was adventurous, I think, or courageous or something, that I didn't have a plan for when I was done. But it's a little stressful, it's like I quit my job, I left my life, I ended my lease, and now I think I'm a better person for having done the trail. And I think, I'm more confident in myself that I'll be able to figure something out in my life that I want to do. But it's always just like, there's a sense of instability, not knowing what your next move is. So I've just been prioritizing spending time with friends and family and relaxing and kind of like regaining my strength back, because it takes a little while, and putting feelers out there and figuring out what's next for me, kind of with this newfound mindset that and all these lessons that we're able to take from our trail experience.
Yeah, what are the big takeaways at this point? And again, I imagine this may come in waves where like 6 months from now you get an epiphany of what this all meant or whatever. But right now, when you think about it, what are the big takeaways from having done this?
Like, I think I have an appreciation for a lot of just the general creature comforts of life. like it's really nice to have a vet. It's really nice to be able to go to the grocery store, because going to the grocery store when we were on trail, it was like, oh my God, there's everything we could ever want here.
Just like get a whole bag of chips, like an entire bag of chips, and just eat the whole thing.
But a lot of, so there's appreciating the small things in life, but also I think I just have a general peace that I feel like I didn't have before. Like, I know that I can slow down, and I really, after like, I don't know, coming out of the pandemic, maybe it was part of it, like entering the working world was maybe part of it. Like, I had a kind of stressful job that was like, felt like it was like the thing that was my main focus, and it made everything feel, it was also designed like constantly having to respond to like things the client asks for, like day of. I just felt like there's an urgency to everything I was doing. And I think having like spending 5 months working towards a very tangible, hard to reach concrete goal that I thought I might fail at, gave me the chance to just know that, nothing's that urgent. Like, I just quit my job. All those things don't matter to me anymore that were stressing me out before.
Right.
Like, the future can be put on hold for however long it needs to be put on hold. And I just don't have to have that same sense of urgency that I used to have. So I think that's given me a lot of peace.
Wow.
That's cool. Yeah, I think it's really interesting to be on the trail, because in a lot of ways it feels like you're pressing pause on your life, and you're able to look at everything retrospectively. And also like, what you want from the future of your life. So we talk about how I think like every single thing that's ever happened to me ever probably crossed my mind at some point while we were hiking, because there's an unlimited amount of time to think. And then, you're not distracted by anything. So things are just coming to your brain, and random memories that you haven't tapped into for years. So it's kind of wild. But I mean, I think for me, it was really good to take a step back from my life and realize, I didn't love everything about the life I was living. Like, what were those things? I think for me personally, I felt like a little bit out of control of my life, because I just was always working. And if I wasn't working, I was prioritizing, socializing and just like trying to accommodate everyone else around me more than I was accommodating myself. And so I think a cool lesson for me is just like, I'm in control of my life. No one else is actually controlling what I do. So it's given me a lot more confidence to just step into life and be like, I can carve out the kind of life I want for myself. I'm not, I don't have to pursue this plan on Thursday night or whatever it is. And I don't, it just like gives you this newfound confidence of being able to like take hold of your life, and not always be a constant people pleaser or whatever it is. Just kind of like tap into yourself and your core identity, and that's going to guide you through, I think. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, like I said, it's just like, even if you don't take anything away from the experience, like, here's like this new path I'm going to take, or here's this new identity I'm going to embody. You still just have so much time to reflect. And I think that in itself is really valuable. Just being able to think about and process everything, and then just like have that front of mind, instead of being, it being in the back of your head, and you don't really tap into it that often.
Yeah, because you got to be so much more intentional when you get back. For the same reason, like, I've used the analogy of the restart button. Like, it's nice to have the opportunity to press that thing.
Yeah,
it's interesting, Ben, talking about like, even if you don't come away with an epiphany, kind of, there are these great insights, and I like both of you just brought up things that, if you look at a lot of the research that's been done around living a good life, a lot of times they'll say like, wow, it's, in your 50s is one of your happiest times in life. And it's because people in their 50s start to figure out what you did, Ben, which is that you don't have to be a people pleaser and live your life the way you think other people want you to. You creating your life. Right. And I almost called this podcast Creating Our Lives, or Creating Our Journey, or something like that, because the idea of like, yeah, we are the co-creator, obviously, with all the other people who intersect us, and with the universe or God or whatever you believe in. But that idea that there's empowerment, there's agency, that you get to make these decisions. And as you're saying, to do it with intentionality. I think that's something that a lot of people feel like is missing. They can't put their finger on it, but that they're kind of going through the motions every day. And to live with the idea that you can and maybe should have some sense of intentionality, even if it's like, today I'm going to be loving. Today I'm going to be patient, right? Or today I'm going to hike 25 miles because I'm on this journey, right?
Right.
That's really powerful. Like that, the other stuff you can figure out, like what's next for the next couple of years and where's my job going to be and where's the housing, like you figure that out. But that, like you may have learned the life lessons that unlock a good life that other people, like some of them are on their deathbed at 90 and they haven't figured it out, you know?
So does that mean it's just going to be like easy from here on out?
Oh yeah, totally. There's no problems, and it's going to be boring actually because it's so easy.
Boring. Oh, it's going to be kind of like the trail. It's going to be too easy.
Yeah, exactly. No, what's going to happen is you're going to be like, when you get to your 50s, you're going to remember this moment. You're going to be like, this is like friggin' Maine, you know? Steve said it was going to be easy.
Right.
Yeah, when like access to some retirement benefits are right around the corner, it's like now I can actually see the end. Like
Right.
my 401k now does feel like it's like I'm never going to see this again.
Right.
The same way that the end of the trail felt like that's never going to happen.
Yeah, but I think like, you know, so I'm 61 now, and so I'm very acutely aware of how there's a lot fewer days ahead of me than there are behind me, right? And so I don't think I'm at the border between New Hampshire and Maine, I hope, but I'm closer to there than I am to DC. And I think part of it is that, like, yeah, life doesn't get easy, but knowing what you guys now know from having done this, like it is easier dealing with the challenges and the valleys. And I think it's easier to be mindful and really soak in the peaks, right? The mountaintops. And I think that's what it does. And I think throughout it gives you a greater sense of maybe purpose. Like, even if it's not like, this is my purpose, but like even living with intentionality is purposeful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you also just made me realize something that's kind of crazy. Like, if life is the Appalachian Trail, like we're in Virginia. We have so much to go.
Oh, God.
It kind of
Yeah.
A long stay too.
A long stay. We're gonna be in Virginia for a while. That was the whole the 25 to 50% mark is all Virginia. So we're gonna be in Virginia 25 years.
That resonates with me, Steve. I was having a conversation with some people last night and also talking about kind of like reflections from the trail. And we were talking about how, I mean, one of the realizations I came to was everyone's always looking for stability, I think, you know, especially, I mean, maybe not especially, but from our experience, people in their 20s are like, okay, if I just get this job, then like I'll finally be able to be happy or like be at this mental place.
Then I'll be
right.
good.
Or if I like, you know, finally like break up with my girlfriend, I'll finally like have this newfound habit or whatever it is. And there's always like, you know, you're putting so much pressure on a future event to solve all your problems. But to your point, and to kind of like wisdom taken from the trail, one of the things I realized is that I don't know if you ever get to a point where you're fully just like at peace with every single thing in life. And you're like, everything is absolutely perfect. I got to the point where I want to be and I can just exist in it. And to what you're saying is like, it's about finding purpose in every stage of life and embracing the adventure of learning all of these new things that you're enduring. So it's like, yeah, while I don't feel totally settled right now, you know, there's like some unsure things about my life. There's some things that haven't been decided yet. I still want to be able to embrace this adventure and soak up the moments, individual moments, and just, you know, even like the bad moments, because it's just such a sign of the times of where I'm at in my life, and it's powerful. So it's less about getting to a point where you're like, I totally made it, and more about learning more and adding more knowledge as you go and embracing that adventure. And yeah, I think that's one of the main wisdom pieces that I took from that experience.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, like you really like there may be little moments where you feel like you're in a sweet spot in life. You're able to feel like, boy, yeah, I've got everything, like there's a nice place right now. But the reality of life is that everything's constantly changing and everything's temporary,
Yeah.
right? So good health at some point, you don't have good health and you hope it's temporary, right? And people come into your life and people leave. Like no one's with you for the whole time,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's just you for the whole journey, right? And there's going to be triumphs and tragedies, right? And so if you think that like I'm looking for this thing to happen, and once that happens, I got it. That's a fool's errand. You'll be disappointed your whole life. Because if you do get to that thing, you realize, oh, that wasn't the thing.
Right. There's there immediately becomes a new mission. Or like, okay, now that I'm here, I'm realizing that I actually need this to happen. Or it's like you get to a good point and something tragic happens that you just can't account.
Right.
It's like, it's never good to look to the future as like a certainty.
Yeah.
No one knows.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a hard thing to accept though too, because we all have goals that we want to strive towards.
Right.
And we want to be able to ride in those. But it is weird also looking back. It's like, oh, these things that I wanted so badly in the past that I thought would really make it for me, like seem so mundane and unimportant to me.
But they help. Goals help, and they keep you going.
And that is what life I feel is about striving. You want to constantly have goals, and you just gotta. I guess it's just setting expectations and making sure that you can appreciate things for what they are. Mm-hmm. Like you said, speaking of taking time to just appreciate the things we have, somebody said this to me once, and I like to think about it. It's all take a moment to appreciate that we don't have stuffy noses right now.
That's so
how much it sucks when you have a stuffy nose.
Or like a sore throat. You're like, God, I wish I appreciated more when I like felt normal.
Yeah. Like none of our, I mean, I actually don't know if you guys have a stuffy nose.
No, I'm not stuffed up.
I don't. I feel pretty good. Yeah. I almost want to end on that because it would just be so appropriate. But I get two other things, just quick things. One, I guess one is a point that kind of what we're talking about is that the goals are important, but I think the sense of happiness or accomplishment after achieving the goal is temporary, wears off, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like you have that euphoria forever. The journey, I mean, it's a cliche almost, but it's the journey that is actually the thing that's meaningful in the end. And so, yeah, the goals give us maybe the reason to get up in the morning and get out of our sleeping bag, right? But the thing that actually makes life worth living is every moment along the way, right? And trying to be present with that and live with that kind of intentionality. And then, because then in the end, like you're going to have to set new goals, right? To get yourself up out of bed the next day.
Right.
Right. Wow.
100%.
One quick thing. What did your relationship with technology or your phones change?
In a way, I feel like it almost got worse. Like, because every time I got to society, I was like, TikTok, doom scroll, got to figure out what's happening in society. And I'm like, wait, this feels great. Because it's like the dopamine rush when you go back to a phone. Oh my God. Yeah, so my screen time is up. Like, and I don't have a job right now, waiting for school to start. Like it made me worse.
Wow.
But in the moment, you realize like our phones were on airplane mode for most of the day, because a lot of places we didn't have service or quality service, and you need to conserve battery. So like while you're in the moment, you realize that like you actually could live a full and happy life, not always on your phone all the time. But I think it's very situational. It's like if everyone were living that way, then if everyone were hiking, like because everyone you pass, is doing the same thing. None of them are on their phones, having really genuine, authentic conversations with them. So, but then you go into society and like everyone else is on their phone. So it's like you just conform to that kind of because that's just how you exist in the world. But it definitely made me realize there's a reality out there that I could be fully, fulfilled as a person without having to be on my phone all the time.
I mean, it's just one of those.
It's interesting. Almost. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, on the trail you
You
don't
what?
have downtime alone. And like that's the scenario when I would spend the most time on social media, where it's like I'm alone and I have downtime, which just isn't a scenario on the trail. Like if you have downtime, you're usually surrounded by people that you can chat with, and that's in regular life. That's what I do too. If I'm around people, I'm not gonna be scrolling through my phone. And half the time I'm scrolling on my phone in order to make plans too. So I think it is a little weird to try to draw the parallel there, because I guess maybe minimize downtime alone. Surround yourself with people. Do fun things.
Yeah, right. Any final words or thoughts?
Any final?
Should we sing our Appalachian Trail song?
Oh, we do have a song that.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, please.
An important piece of information before we sing it probably is that Nobo means northbound, which is we were Nobo hikers because we were going northbound on the trail. It's a frequently used lyric in the song. So it's
great.
And also Froggy, Airbuds, Scorp's Queen, Old Man, and Tooth Fairy are all names of other thru hikers. So just so you know, it's not gibberish.
Excellent. Thank you for the context.
To the tune of Bohemia Days.
Yeah, Bohemia Days.
In the musical Tick Tick Boom, this is the trail. What's the name of the song?
This is Trail Song.
This is Trail Song.
By
Wonka and Tweedle. 5, 6, 7. This is the trail, no bo, no bo, bo. This is the trail, no bo, no bo, bo. This is the trail, no bo, no bo, bo. Appalachia. Pooping in the privy, there might be no soap. Hiking up a mountain on a steep slope. Sleeping in a shelter, you better hope that there's no mice in there. Revolving door trail maze, 3,000 a year. Mount Katahdin, soon to be near. Froggy, Airbud, Scorp's Queen, Old Man, and Tooth Fairy. Mike and Lolly were 2 hikers that we met in February. Don't forget Trail Angels, Michelle was great. Her soup and baked potato were really first rate. We are thriving, and everyone is thriving. I thought by now I'd have norovirus twice. Our food supply is shrinking, so let's start thinking about heading into town so we can resupply. This is the trail, no bo, no bo, bo. This is the trail, no bo, no bo, bo. This is the trail, no bo, no bo, bo. Appalachia, wah, 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 Appalachia, whoa, 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 Appalachia. No bo, no bo, bo.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen.
We got mixed up there.
Adam Bayer and Ben Sackler, thank you so much. This was fascinating and enjoyable and lovely, as are the two of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Hot calling the kettle, enjoyable.
Thank you to Adam and Ben for such a wonderful conversation. I'm sure you could tell how much I enjoyed that. I have so much admiration for them and what they've done. Just incredible stories. And to be so reflective and learn so many life lessons. I thought that was just wonderful. Anyways, I hope you're following the podcast. Make sure you are. Please rate and review if you haven't already. It'll only take a couple of seconds. We'd love to get as many 5-star ratings as we can so we can get this in front of more people. Please also share the podcast with people that you know. I think so many people would benefit from this episode, for instance. And thanks very much, and I hope you have a great remainder of your day. Hi, that was great. That was, oh my God, it's like long. I think we're going to have to do like there may be a 2-parter. But that felt great to me. What about you guys? What did it feel like?
That's so fun. Awesome. Also, like a lot of time when people, this is also our friend Eliza, so she overheard the whole thing.
Hi, Eliza.
Yeah,
because I think the recording's over, unless maybe this is after credits or whatever.
This is hi.
We're in her home right now, so
thank you for the recording studio.
Oh, I just got so thirsty. I needed to.
You got a sneak peek of the episode.
Yeah, but it's interesting because while like being back from the trail, of course, people are eager to hear about it, but also like the format of it being an interview allows us to really go into depth about it. I think in a way that's deeper than some of the conversations I've had about like relaying information about what it was like on the trail. Right. So like also like thanks for giving us the opportunity to reflect on this like verbally, because I think it's not something I fully had. I mean, a lot of that has been stuff we've kind of said a little bit, but like in passing and like all together with a little bit more depth, like that was really therapeutic and good for me too. Yeah,
and it allows you to talk about it, and it allows you to kind of like come to terms with a lot of things that, you know, like some of those things that we were saying were probably the things that we haven't even thought of or said, but the conversation kind of grabbed that insight from within us, and it allows us to process it even a little bit more. And like you said, I think the process of processing it is going to be you know, a long one, probably, but it was cool to kind of like extract those lessons from within ourselves, I think.
Yeah, and also especially 2 weeks out, because I've joked that I'm like, the trail, like that's old news. I already did that. Like, 2 weeks. I was like, I feel like I've lived the whole life.
There's a lot of that was just a thing I did.
Yeah. That. Yeah, I did the trail one time. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm proud of you guys. I think that was great, and I love following along with you guys on Instagram. That was really
good. Credit where credit's due. This guy did all of the Instagram. Like, I'm not sure if you could tell. Like, it was.
Yeah. I know it's clear. Yeah. And it's great. Also, your friendship is just one. I mean, I was thinking as we were doing it, you know, because again, I'm just starting, so I'm like, is anybody going to listen to or watch these things? And I think each of you individually, and I thought about this in advance because it's hard doing it with two people, right? And that, which also makes it longer, right? But I think both of you are like really interesting individuals, but your friendship and some of the interesting parallels, as you guys saw, it's really awesome. Like, it's endearing, particularly for me, because I care about you guys so much. But I think the people who don't know you are going to just be like, oh my God, I love these guys, you know?
Very nice.
Acapella outdoorsmen. We're a rare breed.
Yeah, no, we're very lucky that we found each other as hiking partners and adventure buddies and pals, and we're about to, and we already have spent a lot of time together since the trails ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting when Adam goes to school, right? And you're not together all the time. That may be the real time for it to come.
Well, that's also what I think is beautiful about our friendship, because I think we can spend a lot of time together, but we like have no reliance on each other. Like, I'm so content.
Yeah. That's great.
I'm happy when you're not around.
But I'm happy.
Is this when you guys fight? Is this when the fight happens?
No, like, I think like that's just really fun. Like, I mean, we're in DC and we're staying at 2 different places. Yeah, I mean, if anything, I guess I do depend on you more, because a lot of the people I'm hanging out with in New York right now are College of Charleston people, which I guess you did that.
But I depend on you financially.
I buy him nice jewelry, like this little necklace. We forgot to mention the necklace.
Oh yeah, the necklace.
Oh.
This is the Appalachian Trail in colors.
Every color is a different state, and each color represents like a different distance. So the colors correspond with the distance of the various states on the trail.
It's like West Virginia is only 1 bead, while Virginia is the most beads.
That's awesome. Oh, I love that. I don't know if anybody's ever pointed this out to you, but in the song, you mispronounce Appalachia. Not Appalachia.
Back.
Yeah, there you go. Full circle. Thanks for listening. If today's episode resonated with you, imagine what we could accomplish together in a one-to-one coaching session. Visit integrityandjoy.com to learn more and book your free consultation. Let's create the life you've been striving for.